Hamilton Ticats lose a heartbreaker, 31-28 to the Edmonton Eskimos. Steve, Ticats played better in this game, had a 13-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and got outscored 18-3 in the final frame to lose the game. A dejected bunch in the locker room after this game.
That's the worst I've seen them in some time. Well, okay, the semifinal last year that put them out.
Yeah,
Felt about this against Edmonton. That's 3 out of 4. They've 3 out of their 5 home games. Their last 5 home games that counted have been losses to Edmonton. All right, 1 this year, 2 last year. At the end of the year, they've got their number. Now they got to go to Alberta. I don't see that being a successful task.
Well, and I think that I don't want to overshadow all the good things that happened in this game, because I think that we saw some improvement on offense, and we saw some rhythm from those guys. We saw the defense play better and get some pressure on Mike Riley.
Lots.
Right, and so it's easy, I think, to sort of dismiss all that because of how the game ends, which I think is, unfortunate in some respects, because I think there were a lot of positives to take away from the game. And I think if this team is 2-1 going into this game and lose a close one to Edmonton, a good team, and you go, well, no, they're 2-2, that sucks, but geez, didn't they play well? But when you fall to 0-4, it's just the continuation of an already bad narrative.
That's right, and you mentioned this earlier when we did the first one of these at the start of the year, that losing those 2 games early really put them in a hole against a much better group of teams coming up, and that's exactly where they find themselves right now. There's a few issues here. I mean, obviously, I agree with you with all the great points. Another one is Castillo and his kicking, right? Yep. I mean, that was good, and there's some great coverage, but some really untimely penalties. The 2 PIs on long PIs, one of them that led to an Edmonton touchdown later in the game. The thing that I didn't like is one player changed the whole defense. One player gets hurt, and the whole defense essentially fell apart.
Yeah, the loss of Keelan Lynn at the end of the third quarter forced the Ticats to shuffle their secondary. So we saw Justin Rogers move into that boundary corner spot, and they brought in Terrence Frederick. Part of this is that inexperience that secondary. It's the fact that the guys that they have on this team in the secondary don't have a ton of experience. And so when you're asking a guy like Justin Rogers to move into that boundary corner spot, he hasn't played there a ton. And look, they went right at him for the entire quarter, and in that final drive, they went at him a ton, right? And he's the guy that went for the interception at the end of the game instead of trying to knock the ball down or making the tackle that ultimately led to the touchdown.
And wasn't the right decision.
That's what young players do, though. That's what inexperienced players do. And the Ticats have a lot of inexperience in that secondary, no question.
I agreed with you what you said earlier about the rhythm of the offense, but let's not forget this: they scored 19 points.
Yeah,
that's all they got, because they got a special teams touchdown. There was a 2-point safety, essentially that goes to the defense early in the game. So that. And they played fairly well on offense, but it's the timeliness of it. And is this team starting to wait for the thing that goes wrong here? Are we getting to that point with it?
Well, and listen,
the interception?
That offense had an opportunity to salt this game away with 2nd and 4, with a minute and a half to go, and they can't pick up the first down, and they have to turn the ball over. They actually kick a field goal to extend the lead, but that was a chance to put the game away.
Put the game away, and certainly take a whole bunch of time off the clock if they don't do that. I had to give Austin some credit at the end of the game for admitting, hey, all we needed on that running play, was 2 yards, because at third and short, you're probably going for it, and especially with the time factor involved and way down deep in their end. But we've seen now the field position late in the game against the opposing team, or certainly in the fourth quarter, something happens to this defense in the fourth. I don't know if they're tired, and I know that one player had something to do with it. Mike Riley made a huge adjustment by getting rid of the ball quickly.
Yeah, and listen, that defensive line pounded Mike Riley for most of the day, and he came back and played really well in that fourth quarter. So again, you've lost a close game to a good team. Edmonton is 4-0, so you need to give them some credit as well. Again, I don't think we're talking in such negative terms about this loss if they aren't in the circumstance that they're in now.
Do they lose this if they weren't in the circumstance that they're in now? That's the other paradox of this. Is this a circular paradox?
Jason Moss talked about this, before the game. He talked about the fact that winning is contagious, and that when you've been in a bunch of close games and you've won them, you figure out how to do it. And the opposite is also true, right? And again, Edmonton finds a way to get it done, as they've done consistently for the last couple of years. They're like 15-3 over the last 18 games, something like that.
Yeah, and Hamilton could say, I mean, there's another thing here too. This continues what is becoming a serious problem here. Home field disadvantage.
Yeah.
Home field disadvantage. I mean, it's insane now. What have they lost, 5, 6, 7 at home?
Yep.
That in games that mattered in a row. That is becoming a huge, huge problem. And you know, if it's a 3-point advantage at home, I'm remembering too, Edmonton didn't have any of their linebackers much there. They didn't really have
their, they had injury problems too.
On offense too. They lost the guy that you think that would win. If you said normally Edmonton beat Hamilton on the last.
Darius Bowman was a big play.
Absolutely, you think it would be Bowman that would be the big part of it.
They lost on the linebacker, lost on the Canadian linebackers,
and they couldn't get through in the fourth quarter. They couldn't get Sherman through the front four into that next level of linebackers where I think he could have done some damage. They couldn't do it, and this is disappointing. It's probably by far the most disappointing loss they've had, not just because they go at 0-4, but because it was there. This is the first time it was right there. I mean, they've had chances before, but this one was right in their hands.
Speaking of right there, make sure you check out 3 Down Nation for this video, obviously, and Steve's take on the game. I'll be writing tomorrow as well. We'll have a bunch of other stuff from around the league. So reporting from Tim Hortons Field, I'm Drew Edwards. That's Steve Milton.